One of the goblins shouted that the ringleader was dead. Now the leader's club would belong to him. The goblin, waving the leader's club, said he would be the leader now. His partner said he disagreed. Goblins were ready to fight each other for the right to possess a club and the opportunity to be called a leader. The two green monsters fell to the ground and fought each other. The other goblins circled around them and shouted in friendship. One of the goblins said the leader had some untouched booty. We should go to the lair and get it. However, another goblin noticed that the type protecting the prey was about to return. Indeed, a goblin in rags and torn clothes appeared from around the corner. The goblin shouted after the creature that he was the one protecting the prey. He was a hideous creature, covering his body like a man. He is the only one who knows where the prey is hidden and wants it for himself. A pack of goblins decided to follow this strange type and take away the spoils of their dead leader. Two cunning goblins said we should wait. Someone strong had already gone there. We have to wait until they start fighting. The clothed goblin quickened his step. He heard someone calling for help. Running to the leader's den, he saw three goblins attacking a girl. The girl was screaming for them to stop. She doesn't want to have children with the goblins. The girl saw a goblin with clothes on and yelled for him to help her. That strange goblin said for the rascals to move away from the girl immediately. One of the attackers said, "Has that freak come again? The leader is dead, so this girl belongs to me now." The villain added that if this type dared to take her away, he could pay with his life. The goblin and his accomplices attacked the strange clothed man. He said he was going to destroy him. The clothed goblin drew his sword. He couldn't believe such low-level freaks were attacking him. He said he wasn't going to die here, he was going to survive. Putting his sword forward, the guy declared that if they didn't let him pass, they would have to die. The villains got scared and turned around and started running away. They shouted that this guy had a gun, but threateningly promised to come back again. The girl walked up to the tired goblin and thanked him. He saved her again. The girl said that he didn't hurt her and continued to protect her. He is really very different from the other goblins. The stranger asked that he hold on and not perish. The goblin thought that he was really different from the others. Actually, he used to be human too. What he didn't expect, however, was that his meeting place with God after being hit by a truck would turn out to be another world with a system. It doesn't even have any features other than viewing some stats. However, he hadn't been sitting around for the past few days and had gotten some information from what this girl had told him. In this world created by the gods, there are many different monsters. However, humans still earned their place on this continent through sheer will. Goblins are considered the weakest and nastiest of all the monsters in this world. Its characteristics are really very weak right now. Even ordinary goblins are capable of destroying him. It is necessary to find a way to become stronger. One of those ways is to be able to mate with females. Goblins have the ability to grow stronger through constant mating and reproduction. However, there are no females among them, so they use females of other races to reproduce, and this is what causes them to constantly pillage. The guy couldn't do that because he was once a human being. The girl told him not to worry. After spending these days with him, she realized that he was completely different and didn't want to live with the rest of the goblins. He needn't worry. When the knights come for her, she'll tell them he's been saving her all along. Knights are always honest and fair. She is sure they will agree to let him live in the village. If the system hasn't fully activated yet, he just needs to hold out until people come and he gets their protection. That way, he can survive and then gradually figure out how to activate the thing. The boy heard that the goblins were coming back with help. He told the girl to hide immediately. One of the goblins ran forward and stated that he wanted this man. He wants to get stronger so he won't die. The guy destroyed this goblin and told the girl that people seem to have come for her to rescue her. The girl rejoiced. It's probably a holy order. That's great, and she wants to meet them. At this time, the knight who appeared used a sword strike, scattering the goblins in different directions. The knight said angrily that these vile creatures had torn the cloak of the holy order. The clothed goblin looked at the knight. It was the first time he had seen such high stats since he had entered this world. The man in front of him was indeed human. The girl approached the knight and said that they were here. The goblin standing next to her thought that this knight was very easy to deal with enemies. However, the goblin saw the knight clench his sword tighter when he noticed the girl approaching him. The goblin rushed towards him and at the last moment managed to push the girl aside. The knight tried to strike the girl with his sword. The goblin wondered, isn't this man here to save the day? Why is he attacking her? Maybe the cave is too dark, and that's why he mistook her for a goblin. The knight came closer and said it was a shame for him. The goblin was able to dodge his attack. The girl tearfully asked what the commander was doing. It's her, Kelia. The knight tells her to be quiet. He knows she's Kelia. However, she has already been captured by goblins, perhaps even carrying one in her belly. It is ridiculous for a filthy creature like her to expect mercy. She must repent of her sins to the great Holy Mother. Kelia tearfully said that although the goblins had kidnapped her, they had not defiled her. It's all thanks to that goblin next to her. The girl pointed at her companion and said that this goblin was protecting her. The knight swung his sword at Kelia. He said she could have made up something more convincing. Does she really think he's a fool at all? She would go to her doom with these lowly monsters. The clothed monster couldn't believe his eyes. He shouted to the girl to run away. There was another way out that way. The goblin grabbed a club and confronted the knight. The guy didn't expect such a turn of events. Suddenly, some woman appeared in the cave and told Loder to stop. At that moment, the goblin found himself in a glowing sphere. The woman standing in front of the knight said that this goblin seemed a bit strange. Kelia on her knees approached the woman and told her to let the saint save her. The girl pulled herself up and, taking the woman's hands in hers, kept asking the saint to save her. The saint wondered if the goblin understood her words. The goblin thought he was facing the Holy Maiden of Ephraia, a representative of the temple he had been told about. If he wanted to survive, she was his only chance. The goblin asked, "They call her the Holy Virgin, isn't he right? He's not really a monster, he used to be human." The goblin explained that he had become like this because of an incident. He could explain if he went with the humans. The knight said that this fellow would be smarter than the rest of the goblins, a rarity. Ephraia noticed that usually goblins are stupid and inferior creatures. They are unable to think and speak so fluently. Perhaps he was sent to them by the Holy Mother. Ephraia asked Kelia if this goblin really didn't hurt her. The girl answered that he had not done anything to her. On the contrary, he protected her from the other goblins and gave her food. Ephraia recognized that this goblin was special. It made sense to take him with them. They would study him thoroughly before making any decisions. The goblin said he agreed and would go with the humans. The boy thought that finally someone here could listen to reason. Since staying here would mean death, he might as well go with them and prove his innocence. Ephraia told Loder that they were leaving. Everyone headed for the exit of the cave. The goblin thanked the Holy Virgin for her kindness and promised to repay her. However, at that moment, Loder stabbed his sword into Kelia's stomach. It happened behind the goblin's back. The girl cried out. The goblin turned around and saw Kelia bleeding and lying on the ground. Ephraia turned to the goblin and, flashing her demonic eyes, told him that when they returned, he would repay them well for everything. The goblin stood at a loss as to what to do now. A full week has passed since then. Events continued in the city. Saint Ephraia and Loder speak to the townspeople in the square. The knight said that the last goblin raid had done great harm to this bright city. Goblins sneakily attacked and wiped out 30 inhabitants. The townspeople shouted that goblins were a vile race. Blood for blood, eye for eye. Men and goblins are enemies forever. Loder added that the Holy Order had carried out the temple's commission and destroyed those goblins. They had avenged the fallen. Ephraia said that the townspeople should continue to visit the temple. They, in turn, would protect their followers. After the speech, sitting in her office, Ephraia said that today's sermon was a great success. People are as stupid as ever. Now they will pray even more and bring more offerings. Ephraia heard her being called. It was a goblin, shrouded in a metal mask. A haggard goblin with a mask over his face was crucified on the wall. He was cursing and cursing the woman. Ephraia looked tiredly at this martyr. Was he really still alive? Where did he get such a lust for life? No wonder they still can't drive these monsters off the continent. The woman wanted to see how the poison would work on this goblin. The goblin said she tricked him, tricked everyone, and destroyed Kelia. Does their lauded Holy Order call that human justice? Ephraia approached the goblin and asked how dare he. A weak, lustful, worthless creature like him decided to speak of human justice? Kelia was bewitched by this goblin, daring to speak for him. It was a betrayal to humanity and the Holy Order. Her death was her redemption. Ephraia added that goblins are the ultimate pests on this continent. She is doing a huge favor by talking to this monster now. The goblin should be grateful and bring his small, disgusting body as an offering to contribute to human experimentation. The goblin thought, is he going to die now? The guy thought it was all his fault. It was stupid how things had turned out. Being a human, reborn as a low-level goblin, He had foolishly relied on human compassion, thinking they were righteous and kind. After returning to the village, Loder and Ephraia tortured and played with him as they pleased, not believing a word he said. The guy couldn't last long because Ephraia hounded him to death. If he was given another chance, there was no way he would trust people. He would definitely break all their bones and drink their blood. If only he had another life. The goblin wondered, was he still alive? Where had he gone? The goblin life simulation system was activated. Could this be his personal system? Turns out it only activates after death, and it can bring him back to life. But it looks like he'll be reborn as an inferior goblin creature again. The system told me to choose one option, yes or no. If you chose no, the soul would dissipate and die permanently. If you chose yes, the current memory would be retained and the object would go back a week to the goblin cave. The guy realized it all. He needs to keep his memory and go back a week. This is an opportunity for him to get revenge. Revenge on Loder and Ephraia. The guy didn't hesitate and chose yes. The system has received a message that Goblin Life 2.0 has begun. Movement to the Goblin Cave is taking place. To help him live at least a little longer, the system has made the hero a little stronger. The guy figured a little stronger still better than nothing. The system reported even though the hero had been revived, the danger was not yet over. The Holy Order will get to the Master. If the hero dies again, the system will not be able to revive him. The boy inquired as to what this system was capable of. It is a simulation system for Goblin Life. The wearer is able to create a simulation to anticipate future events. The goblin rejoiced, now he would be able to foresee the future. Our hero has decided to start immediately. The current scenario is to survive in a goblin cave. It is necessary to warn fellow goblins and unite to defeat Loder and his men. You must leave the other goblins behind and escape yourself. You need to hide deep in a cave and pray that no one finds it. The hero thought, even though he had three options, he was sure that even if he united, the goblins would still not be able to deal with Loder. Only by escaping can one survive guaranteed. First, he should try to simulate the option with the most points. If he can trade them for weapons, he might be able to defeat Loder with a surprise attack. The system reported that the hero decided to lead the goblins in a desperate battle against the Holy Knight Loder. Due to the large gap in strength, Loder destroyed the hero anyway. The hero overestimated the strength of the goblins too much. As our hero thought, relying on goblins, he won't have a chance to defeat Loder, but he earned some points. The guy opened the swap section and saw a lot of weapons. However, he has too few points. The coins he had could be spent on a dagger. It's an elven light fast blade. Our hero checked and rejoiced that it was a very sharp blade. It was very different from the usual goblin weapons. If you hit a vital point, you can destroy anyone with a single blow. Our hero asked the system, why isn't Kelia here? Where did she go? The system reported that some details of the timeline had changed due to the hero's rebirth. In the current timeline, Kelia has not been captured by goblins, so she lives a happy, peaceful life in the village. Our hero thought that he seemed to have kept his promise to the girl after all. In that case, he has nothing else to worry about. The guy decided that he could survive on his own and escape from here. This is the narrowest passage. The entrance from the outside is smaller, so there should be fewer guards here. The guards outside were discussing the goblins. How disgusting they were. The job of guarding the cave. Our hero crept closer. He could hear the guards talking. This is a small passageway. Any goblin who came out of here will be immediately destroyed by the hammer. The guard said that on Mr. Loder's orders, any girl who tries to escape during this chaos must be destroyed. They must not be allowed to reach the village. The young goblin thought that this order was willing to destroy even their own for the sake of their dominance. What to speak of a goblin like him? The boy thought he had no choice but to join the battle. The guards heard screams coming from the cave. Someone was asking for help. He had been kidnapped from the holy city. They noticed someone running towards them from the cave. One of the guards decided if he destroyed someone, Mr. Loder would definitely reward him. The knight looked into the cave and said that he had come here to set everyone free. You may not be afraid and go free. The goblin thought he was about to face the man. He had come back for revenge. The guard who was closer to the cave stopped beside the one who emerged from the cave. His colleague wondered why he had stopped. Our hero, having disposed of one guard, thrust his elven blade forward and pounced on the other guard. The guard saw that he was being attacked by a goblin and cried out in surprise. Our hero, using the surprise factor, attacked the armed man.
The guard was stabbed and began to bleed. The goblin shouted loudly.
The guard, falling on his back, asked in surprise, "Does this goblin really know how to speak human?" The guard knelt down and asked to be released. He repented for what he had done. The guard showed a picture of his wife and daughter and said he had a family waiting for him at home. The warrior said his opponent is smart. He should understand him. He's only following orders. He was forced to come here. He has gold and a young girl. He's ready to bring it all here. The guard asked the goblin to think about it, for in that case, he might gain a lot by letting him live. At that moment, the guard was hiding a dagger behind his back. Deciding that the goblin was distracted, the guard swung his knife and was about to strike his opponent while calling him a stupid monster. Our hero was faster and more determined. He pierced the guard with his blade. The young goblin stood beside the guards he had destroyed. The boy heard a voice coming from far away. He couldn't mistake it for Loder's voice. "The night is coming this way." The young man decided that they would meet soon. The boy took off the clothes of the guards he had destroyed. To avoid being seen now, the young goblin walked away in the opposite direction to where the voices were coming from. Loder and Freya approached the guards and were very surprised to see them destroyed. Loder was angry. Did the goblins slip past them? Freya said it looked a lot like the work of mutants. What does Loder think about that? The companion agreed. If the goblins escaped, it was a bad thing. The knight said angrily about the guards that they couldn't even defeat the mutant goblins. Real lowlifes. Freya said that mutant goblins are pretty interesting. The woman added if they managed to capture one, they could have a lot of fun with him. Once away from that place, our hero sat down on the grass and thought he was finally saved. Taking a bite of an apple, the guy said, "If these people hate goblins so much, he will do goblin things to them." Goblins are capable of getting stronger by mating and devouring. By increasing their characteristics, he will be able to breed stronger offspring, then he will expand his influence. In this life, he will make every human male's only wish be to perish, and make every girl moan and wail for his leg. The hero wondered if Loder was still looking for him with his men. Someone hiding his face walked by. The young goblin thought it was necessary to strike first to gain an advantage, and pounced on the man. The stranger tripped over a rock, lost his balance, and began to fall. The young man with the dagger in his hand wondered, was the goblin in front of him also a goblin? In front of our hero lay a goblin, but it had female features. But as far as he knew, goblins only give birth to males. Therefore, they can only reproduce by mating with other species. The girl asked this guy not to hit her. She's just here to get some water. The young man wondered, how could a goblin be able to speak so well? What was going on here anyway? The system reported if a male goblin married a female goblin, he would become a legendary goblin god. The boy wondered, would marriage to this girl make him a goblin god? The girl said fearfully that she had really only been sent to fetch water. If she did not do so, the chief would destroy her. The guy apologized and said he didn't mean to scare her. She shouldn't cry. After all, if she kept yelling, she might attract the attention of Loder and his soldiers. The girl wondered if her companion could talk too. The boy nodded affirmatively in response. The boy thought that usually goblins weren't able to talk properly. She probably didn't manage to socialize properly with other goblins. She said that this young man was kind. The others only beat and scolded her. It was the first time someone took such tender care of her. If he had nowhere else to go, he could return with her to her tribe. The young man wondered, was there really a goblin tribe nearby? He wasn't sure if Loder was following him. It was definitely not the time for mating. The main thing was to find a safe place. The stranger said she could take this guy to her tribe. All the young man cared about now was where he could find his subordinates. The girl brought the guy to her camp. It was located deep in the woods. The goblins, seeing the stranger, began to come out of their dwellings. The armed monsters were surprised. Why is this goblin dressed like a human? Why is he so strange? The guy thought that there were quite a few goblins in this tribe. The young man stated that he had come to join this tribe and inquired as to who was in charge. The goblins were surprised. Did a stranger really want to see their chief? You can't just go and see the chief when you want to. We must catch him and then take him to the chief ourselves. The girl shouted that this guy is not bad, should not act rashly. A brave goblin woman shielded the young man from the armed warriors with her body. At that moment, someone menacingly asked why everyone was gathered here. A huge goblin with a staff in his hand appeared in front of the gathering. It was a senior goblin of the 25th level. He asked what all the commotion was about. The boy wondered, Is there really such a strong goblin in this tribe? The older goblin asked the girl why she had brought the stranger. The frightened girl replied that the young man had nowhere else to go. The eldest goblin rejoiced and said that in that case they would destroy the stranger and have a feast. The goblins rejoiced. Now they would have meat and eat the stranger. The young man tells them to stop. He knows how to make weapons, so he asks to be allowed to join them. He will make this tribe stronger. The elder goblin told his warriors to stop. The monster approached our hero and said that he didn't even smell of such abilities. What exactly can he create? The young man said, if he finds iron ore, he will make simple household tools. He needs a little time. He is sure they will be satisfied. It seemed that the higher the level of the goblin, the higher his mental ability. The young goblin added, if the tribe has iron tools, they will be able to deal with any monsters and humans. They will defeat everyone. The elder goblin said that with weapons made of iron, you don't have to be afraid of humans. They could handle humans and even elves. The elder goblin said he would give this boy a chance. Within 3 days, he must find iron ore and make a weapon, then he will live. The elder goblin added that if the guy failed to complete the task, he and this girl would be destroyed. Our hero was alone with the girl. He thought that these monsters would keep their words. With his current strength, it will not be possible to resist directly, so it is necessary to delay time and create a weapon to become stronger. Night had fallen. The goblin girl told them to stop. She could go no further. They had been on the road all day. One of the monsters threw the girl to the ground and started kicking her, telling her that if she couldn't find the ore, she would die. The girl screamed that she was in pain and asked not to be beaten. She will keep quiet. Our hero threw a rock at the head of one of the goblins. He said that these monsters were following him to look for ore, not to make a mess. The guy added that he had already explained where to find the ore, so each of them should bring at least a piece of it to survive. The young man pulled out his elven blade and said that otherwise, he would spare no one. The goblins were scared. Turns out he has iron weapons. He can really destroy them. As soon as they have their own iron weapons, they will get their revenge. Our hero thought this goblin was right. It is necessary to destroy them before they make weapons. Guy remembered the message from the system. If a male goblin marries a female goblin, the male goblin will become a legendary goblin god. He thought it was time to become stronger. The young man told Yue to stop crying. Doesn't she want to be with him? If she is with him, she can eat meat every day and live in warmth. No one else will touch her. The guy added that he always keeps his word, but for now he is too weak, so he really needs her help. The girl inquired how her interlocutor could become stronger. The boyfriend replied that this could only be done if she wanted to have children with him. The girl was surprised. Is it really possible? But I haven't tried it yet. No one has ever gotten stronger with my help. The young goblin said it wasn't hard as long as she was willing. He would show and tell her everything. The young man explained that the process starts with this and kissed the girl on the lips. The girl liked this process and said she wanted this guy to get stronger. She said she already wants to have a baby with him. System got the message. This couple is going to have 7 children and they are upgrading. The system reported that due to the elevation, these goblins get extra points and reinforcements. The young goblin tried his best to become stronger. Having familiarized himself with the changes in his parameters in the system, the guy thought that he had not only increased his level, but also improved his form. The chances of him winning increased. After the reinforcement process, the young man said that this girl now belongs to him. He would always protect her. The girl replied that Ling Tian had turned out to be very good. The young people heard someone screaming. Someone was calling for help. A goblin appeared from behind a rock, carrying some kind of stone in his hands. He shouted that he was being chased by a demon wolf. Ling Tian saw the iron ore in the goblin's hands. Had he really found it? However, he had also brought trouble behind him. The guy said for the girl to wait for him here and not to go anywhere. Yu said for Ling Tian to be careful. The little goblin ran away from the furious beast in fear. The demonic wolf had its mouth open and was about to swallow the monster. However, Ling Tian approached the wolf and stabbed his elven blade into its neck. The beast roared loudly. After a short battle, the wolf was defeated. The goblin now looked fearfully at our hero. The guy said that was good. Now the goblin could give him the ore. Ling Tian praised the little monster and said if he found more ore, then he would definitely make him a personalized weapon. The goblins were surprised. Does this guy really make things? Will he succeed? The young man showed a spear with a metal tip and said that he had made this weapon from iron ore. The little goblin said that this master was not deceiving them. He destroyed the demon wolf himself and saved them all, so he can also make weapons. An iron spear is much more dangerous than a stone spear. Ling Tian raised his spear up and asked, "Who wants one of these?" All the goblins raised their hands up and said that they wanted such a thing. It was what they wanted. An elder goblin appeared on the lawn and said that it wasn't bad. He didn't expect that this young man seemed to be such a master. The elder goblin said if this guy wants to stay here, it's not that simple. The next task is to make 50 guns in 2 days. Ling Tian wondered, why is this head so cruel? The little goblin said for Ling Tian to try his best. He would help him. 2 days passed, the appointed hour came. Spears with metal tips were made. The boy said, "This is what Senior Goblin ordered." The goblins did not expect. Brother Ling Tian kept his word. The older goblin said it was a great job. After a successful hunt with new spears, the leader said that everyone should fill up on delicious food today and celebrate joining their Lin Tian tribe. Yu told the young man that this sacrifice was especially for him. She had a piece of meat in her hands. Ling Tian lowered his head. He felt really bad. The girl wondered, what happened to the guy? An elder goblin appeared in front of Ling Tian and Yue. The girl looked at him in surprise. The monster laughed. He said he had counted on this guy being smarter. Did the outsider think that he didn't notice his eagerness? If Ling Tian dared to encroach on his authority, this matter would not end well for him. The older goblin grabbed the girl by the hair and said, "So they've formed a bond then?" The head scratched the girl's neck and said that in that case we should test her. See how good she was. In the next moment, Ling Tian jumped to his feet and pushed the girl away from the elder. The guy thrust his elven blade forward. The monster wondered, how dare this rascal? Ling Tian said that the elder goblin lacked guile. He had long known that the meat would be poisoned, so he had just played along. The supreme goblin and Ling Tian clashed in hand-to-hand combat. The young man swung around and delivered a staggering blow with his blade at his opponent, who was at a disadvantage. The villain was destroyed and fell senseless to the ground. Ling Tian turned to face the tribe and said that he was now the new leader. He would help the goblins fight the elves and humans. Ling Tian raised his sword up and said that he was allowing everyone to mate. Now they would always have meat. The goblins rejoiced and began to praise the new head of the tribe. Now they would have a new life. Ling Tian pointed at the destroyed former head and said that this was a gift for the entire tribe. The goblins rejoiced and pounced on the victim's body. They began to tear it apart. Ling Tian thought that leading the goblin tribe was only the beginning of his revenge. The next target was elf tribe. The girl watching the goblin tribe from the bushes couldn't understand what was going on there. After getting the information she needed, the girl returned to her home, the house of the elves over the cliff. The girl entered the room and the princess was greeted, "Welcome back." The maid told the lady to stop. The girl replied that she had an urgent message. The princess opened the door and said she had something to report to her mother. She has information about an enchanted forest in the east. Her mother was not alone. The woman wondered if Kasana had shown up. The princess saw that her mother was not alone, blushed with embarrassment and apologized, saying she would come back later. The woman told Kasana not to leave. She was in such a hurry after all. "What's the matter?" The princess replied that she wanted to report the tribe of goblins. The woman wondered, what could weak and filthy monsters do? What happened in the tribe of goblins? Kasana said she found a huge bear in the enchanted forest this morning. There were signs of a struggle at the scene, and the smell of goblins could be smelled everywhere. The bear is the fiercest beast in the enchanted forest. There was no way the goblins would be able to deal with it by themselves. A few days ago, she saw that the old head of the goblins had been destroyed by some young man. It must have been because of him that the goblins had become stronger. The woman assumed that the goblins were beginning to regain their strength. She ordered Kasana to gather a team and destroy the goblins. But not all of them. Hostages must be left behind. A potion made from goblin hearts is an excellent tonic for the male members of their tribe. The woman said her daughter had done a good job and offered to reward her with a handsome elf. Kasana said no, because she had to be on time for her evening inspection. So some other time. The rangers reported to the head that the branches were lined with tree buildings. There are about 30 elven tree buildings in the forest, all very tall. Ling Tian studied the map and said that it wasn't bad, and promised to bring 2 elves here very soon. In the meantime, we should get ready. The goblins were surprised. 2 elves at once? Long live the new head. Ling Tian ordered all the weapons to be prepared for battle. The guy counted that there were 31 houses in total, with about 2 elves living in each. It turns out that there are about 60 in total. In addition, they also have mines. It turns out that there are at least 70 of them. After the death of the past head, Lin Tian took the goblins to obtain weapons and hunt monsters to level up. Starting from today, they set out to destroy monsters. The system reported that the skill Toothy Destruction had been obtained. The system reported that the Stone Skin skill had been obtained. The system reported that the skills Cleansing, Climbing were obtained. The system reported that the skill Poison Extraction had been obtained. The total combat power has reached 250. The combined combat power of the elves is only 200 units. Ling Tian thought that his goblins now surpassed the elves in strength. The system reported that the hypothermia was complete. After all, our hero was going to secretly attack the elves, so caution wouldn't hurt. The system reported that the goblin activation was complete. Current plot: sudden night attack. The hero leads an entire army of goblins to attack a tribe of elves. Even with stealthy infiltration, the elves will notice the goblins. The goblins may be trapped. Upon capture, the head of the elves will hang the goblin for all to see. After replaying the possible situation, our hero was surprised because he thought that everything would go smoothly, but as a result, he could end up in a trap. Ling Tian thought that this was exactly the kind of ending that could await them. It appears that they are being watched. Goblin hearing and sensitivity are highly developed. If you concentrate, you can find clues. Gazing into the distance, our hero thought he had found those clues. The princess and her aides realized that the goblins wanted to attack their tribe. Who knew? They need to tell their mom. The girl did not manage to get far. She was wounded by an arrow in the buttock. The elves that were near the girl were also stunned. Kasana couldn't move fast, she had no strength. The goblins said that their head had hit the bullseye. Kasana had a strange feeling. Had the arrow been poisoned? Ling Tian said with a smile. He didn't think that catching the elves would be so easy. They appeared here just in time. Ling Tian ordered his goblins to grab all the elves who were left alive. Losing consciousness, Kasana heard the goblins about to move her to their camp. A senior aide told our hero that he would keep this elf girl for him. It seems that goblin liquids have a special effect on elf girls. Their chances of defeating the elves are markedly increased. Kasana was outraged. How dare they kidnap the princess? Were they planning to attack her clan as well? The princess added that they should not expect their mistress to pardon them. She will not forgive any of the goblins. If a hair falls from her head, they will all die. Lingdon wondered, what kind of pardon could we be talking about? The boy wondered if the princess considered them her subjects. However, his subordinates disagreed. Obviously, the elves could wipe out all the goblins in the forest. The princess remembered her mother saying that a few goblins should be left alive. But there are too many goblins in the jungle. It's not easy to kill them all. The head of the goblins said he would show the girl around tonight. Ling Tian told his subordinates to eat the other 2 elves and absorb their skills. The princess cried out in fear. Ling Tian said they wouldn't eat the princess. He had other plans for her. Kasana told them not to do that. The system congratulated our hero for reaching the level limit. There were screams coming from the elf's house. Someone was saying that he couldn't go on like this. Someone was telling him that he couldn't finish today. The woman said if she had known, she would have caught more goblins. Remembering her daughter, the woman asked if Kasana had returned. She was surprised when she answered no, for she should have returned long ago. The aide suggested the mistress send a few people. Maybe we could catch some goblins and raise the level at the same time. The woman told him to take the boys with him and go to Kasana's. Someone from the darkness shouted that her Kasana was not coming back. The deputy grabbed his sword, everyone present startled. An arrow flew out of the darkness from the bow. It went straight for the target. Through a window, the head of the goblins entered the room and said to have his followers take over everyone here. The young man said that he had captured Kasana, and very soon they would have babies. The boy, looking into the woman's eyes, said they would soon be one family. The woman jumped to her feet and snatched her battle sword from its sheath. The landlady stood up to the invaders and asked what they had done to her Kasana. The woman screamed that she was about to destroy this rascal and pounced on the goblin. The guy dodged the attack and said that her tribe had already been taken over. It was time for her to join them. The head of the elf clan fell to the floor and said that her body wasn't obeying her. Lin Tian said that the arrow had goblin seed on it. Once it hits the body of the elves, the body immediately goes numb. So she should be more humble. The woman tried to get to her feet, but she couldn't do anything. She was paralyzed. Ling Tian leaned over the elven woman and said that he had heard of the awakening potion, so that's how they use it. She didn't think that one day the goblins would come to settle scores with them. The head of the elf family thought it was the new head that Kasana was talking about. The woman heard strange sounds outside and asked what was going on. Ling Tian noticed that it looked like the time was up. Ling Tian put the knife to the elven woman's throat and said that they should discuss further cooperation. Down at the foot of the house, goblins were slaying a clan of elves. The elves were screaming that they did not want to give in to the goblins. The woman asked indignantly what these goblins were doing to her subjects. Ling Tian replied that the goblins had become on par with the elves, and now they could not be defeated. The guy said that when the elves were stronger, they destroyed the goblins. Now it's the other way around. A new reality must be realized. The head of the goblins told the elven woman that he needed the goblins to get stronger, so he needed her help. The lives of the elves depend entirely on her now. The woman knelt down and said that if her children were alive, the goblins could do whatever they wanted to her. The elfess responsibly stated that she was willing to sacrifice herself and bear children to the goblins. Kasana, sobbing, asked her mother what they would do in the future. Would they really live under the tutelage of goblins? The woman said that she had underestimated the goblins. She didn't think that these monsters would become stronger. Now only defenseless children and women remained among the elves. The surviving elves will have to cooperate with the goblins in the future. From now on, the elves would have to live among the goblins. Kasana and her mother were locked in a cage like the other elves. Lin Tian said that these women would now live here. He would organize 3 meals a day for them. If they go crazy, the goblins shouldn't be blamed for it. The elfess said she had a request. They are her children after all. Can she take care of them? Ling Tian thought that it was all because of the characterization. The system indicated that it was immense motherly love. Ling Tian agreed and told Yue to have the elf girl help her. Ling Tian thought that he should wait for the children to grow up, and then he would elevate the clan. Our hero decided to check the value of characteristics. Did he really upgrade his skills to the highest level? The recently gained points are converted into his power. The protagonist decided that he needed to hurry up with child reproduction. Even with his current powers, he would already be able to crush Loader. After the elves have grown up, he will face him. Half a month has passed. The little goblins grew older. The elves continued to be caged. One of the goblins was holding a newborn baby in his arms. An elven woman, exhausted, lay in a cage. The woman saw the child and was frightened. Could it be her child? It's disgusting. She doesn't want that scary baby. Ling Tian asked Yue how many newborns they had. The girl replied that there were about 30 or 40 babies. Kasana went into labor. Her mother, holding the baby in her arms, told Kasana to hold on and not give up. Kasana moaned that she couldn't. The woman told the goblin leader to help her daughter. It's her first birth, so it's very hard for her. Ling Tian resolutely walked towards Kasana and told the elf girl to spread her legs. The protagonist looked everything over carefully and, after analyzing the situation, said he understood everything. Kasana kept saying she couldn't. Lin Tian told the elf woman to be quiet. After all, these were his children as well. After finishing the set of measures and wiping his hand, Ling Tian said that everything was fine. She was fine. You said that Ling Tian is really cool. He even handled the childbirth. The guy replied, "It's nothing. It's just a matter of life." Ling Tian heard Kasana asking to be let go. He stopped and turned around. The protagonist saw 2 goblins holding Kasana and wanted to begin the process of producing children. One of them was saying that he would be the one to go first. Ling Tian took out a dagger and stabbed through that goblin who wanted to be first. He said that he had warned them. We need to wait for the elven women to recover and rest. Otherwise, they would die. From now and forever, goblins shall not touch elves without his knowledge. The elfess said that Ling Tian was different from the other goblins. The head said that he had to do that since everyone needed rest. And Tima reported that the hero had succeeded in capturing the elves and impregnating them. After the elves became pregnant, they gave birth to healthy goblins with higher qualities. Seeing that the members of the tribe are getting stronger, the hero decides to take revenge on Loader. It is necessary to do everything on his own and destroy Loader. The goblins will help and go to Guanming. Ling Tian thought that according to the system's data, he would soon find enemies. Although he was currently strong, the strength of his opponents should not be underestimated. As long as the hero's characteristics allow him to destroy Loader, he will try to do everything on his own. The hero seized the moment when Loader was alone and decided to attack. The opponent was caught off guard and almost died, but at that moment Loader's assistant appeared and attacked the hero. The holy swordswoman saved Loder, and the hero parted with his life. Soon the brave group entered the capital and never appeared again. The result of this research suggests that in front of the powerful swordswoman, the hero didn't stand a chance. Ling Tian thought, where did this saint swordswoman even come from? He didn't think that Loder and his comrades would leave Guanming City. If they left, there would be no way to find them again. Ling Tian thought that it was necessary to hurry up. Ling Tian told his assistant that he was going to go around the people's territory. She would have to manage the tribe, but it would only be for a few days. Yue wondered if he was crazy. If he went to the human territory, he would be destroyed. Ling Tian said that he was angry at the humans and needed to take revenge. The elven woman asked if she could help. He could use stealth skills so people wouldn't notice him. Ling Tian accepted the offer and used the elf girl's skills. He didn't think that the elven woman was concerned about his safety. The woman stated that if he died, they would be continuously impregnated here without him. Moreover, she and her children will hope that the children's father will return safely. Our hero thought that the head of the elf clan knew what to do for the sake of survival. Yu told her master that she would take care of the tribe. Ling Tian replied that he had no doubt. Guangming City, the city streets are lively as always. Our hero, hiding his face under his hood, thought that the patrols had reappeared, and the people's defenses had been greatly strengthened. Is the holy swordswoman in the city now? Our hero asked everyone for a long time, but no one had heard of her. Ling Tian approached the central square of the city. There were plenty of people here as usual. There were especially a lot of people studying Guangming's current ranking. Our hero went over there as well. He thought, did Loder rise again? Ling Tian, moving around the city, thought that he had to find clues or else the revenge plan would fail. Passing by a tavern, Ling Tian heard someone say that today was a treat. It was a voice the guy couldn't forget. He stopped and headed inside the establishment. Ling Tian saw Loder drinking in the tavern. Loder told stories of his heroic battles to those around him. Those present listened and nodded regularly in approval. Passions were running high, and some knights were ready to start figuring things out after drinking alcohol. The bartender said that an evil dragon had recently entered the breeding stage, so it was stealing livestock and eating people. If the knights here are so tough, they'd better deal with the dragon, or they'd be making a mess of the place. Ling Tian heard about the dragon and thought he could use the information. The bartender added that if an evil dragon attacked the city, it would be a big deal for everyone. The travelers will definitely not be able to repel the attack. The city will be plunged into chaos. Loder wondered, wasn't it just a dragon? Is it something to be feared? He added that he wouldn't hide it anymore. The holy swordswoman was on her way. She is his mentor, so she will definitely help him slay this dragon. That's why there's no need for troops. They'll figure it out themselves. The tavern patrons wondered, had Loder really invited a saint? Was it really that cool? With a saint, they would definitely be able to defeat the dragon. In that case, Loder would be the hero of this town. Loder suggested that everyone have a drink and celebrate the impending deliverance of the dragon. Ling Tian thought that the dragon might be his chance. The guy paid for the liquor. Leaving the tavern, our hero heard Loder ask him, would you like a drink with everyone? Ling Tian, without taking off his hood, said that he would rather do it next time. Loder came to the temple to meet the saint. The knight bowed and told his mentor that the evil dragon was approaching the city and no one dared to come out against him. Saint inquired as to the progress of the assignment. The knight replied that 10 dragon hunters were stationed at various points in the city, all as the saint had requested. The woman said that she didn't want to lose her reputation. It was necessary that everyone was up to the task. The saint and the knight walked out of the temple. The citizens waved. They were lucky to see the saint. Would one day someone win her heart? The woman said this is a special time. What are they doing here? Everyone needs to be evacuated. Loder replied that he would do it right away. Suddenly, all the townspeople began to flee. A bloodthirsty dragon appeared over the city. The monster grabbed innocent citizens in its claws. The saint and the knight bared their swords. The woman said, "Here comes the dragon." She ordered Loder to take his partner and go to the city wall. The deputy reports to our hero that they have checked everything. A group of soldiers are standing at the gate. The dragon is already in place. What should they do next? Lin Tian stated that the game is starting. A pack of dragons was approaching the city, and they were terrifying the citizens. People sought shelter from the monsters. The saint walked up to the huge shooting gun on the castle wall and asked, "Does anyone know how to hunt a dragon?" Preparations must be made, the meal is coming soon. The woman fired a shot, and one of the dragons was hit through and through. The warriors cried out in fear that the dragons were closing in on them. But why did everyone have a headache? The saint wondered, is it really the purple golden mother of dragons? We need to reload and attack her quickly. Someone said crossbows won't hurt her at all. The purple golden dragon mother opened her mouth, and a stream of fire erupted from there, which she directed at the fortress wall. People began to scatter in different directions, screaming. The crossbow was immediately destroyed. Everyone shouted that they had to save themselves. The wall was about to collapse. The saint said there was no need to panic. She could handle everything, and applied the highest level of swordsman. The woman ordered the city's defense to continue. At this moment, our hero was on the high ground outside the fortress wall. He, like a commander, watched the battle. The guy did not think that the swordswoman would be able to repel the dragon's attack. Who would have thought that the mother of dragons would turn out to be so powerful? The protagonist, estimating the size of the beast, thought that this dragon was a true monster. However, the power of the holy swordswoman is not lagging behind either. She fights bravely against the dragon. Ling Tian thought that it was good that the swordswoman's target is not him. The mother of dragons seems to be weaker than the swordswoman, but health is still at a high level. The protagonist suggested that the swordswoman might run out of steam soon, and this would be a chance for him. Ling Tian thought that he would have the opportunity to take revenge on humanity and enter the city. The humans would be trapped. The top aide told his boss that his squads were waiting for the command to attack. The people on the city wall, while repelling the dragon attacks, realized that it was very difficult to do so. Loder stood over the destroyed dragon. He said that nothing was impossible, for he was not so simple either. The knights ran up to Loder and the saint and said that the goblins were attacking. The saint was surprised, for the goblins were in the forest. They would not dare to come here. The knight said there weren't many dragons left and they would be able to hold them off. Loder and saint can help deal with the goblins. The knight and saint headed toward the forest. Several goblins were waiting for them below, hidden in the sewers. The knight and the girl were trapped. They wondered, where did so many goblins come from? The girl screamed that she was caught in a net. She needed to be helped. Loder, hit by arrows, could not move. Our hero appeared near the captives and said he didn't think he could capture them with such ease. Loder shouted that he was about to finish off all the low-grade goblins. Ling Tian turned around and told this knight to repeat once more. After saying that, the knight was deactivated. Ling Tian said for one squad to leave the city with these prisoners. With the rest, he would climb the city wall. The saint wondered, why are there so many goblins? Why did they come just now? What's going on? The dragon-turned woman said that humans are very defenseless. The dragon woman swung around and said that she was about to destroy this man. The saint wondered, does this dragon really believe in himself that much? The dragon and the saint fought in a fierce confrontation. The woman used a special swordsmanship skill. She wondered how much blood would come out of the dragon. The dragon woman applied the cut of iron. The holy swordswoman decided that she would deal with the dragon woman. I wonder if Loder will be able to handle the remaining dragons and goblins. There was an explosion on the city wall. The swordswoman thought, hasn't Loder dealt with them yet? The dragon woman thought the goblins had arrived just in time. The dragon woman said goodbye to the holy swordswoman, and as she flew away, she said that once she healed her wounds, this swordswoman would be finished. The swordswoman said that she would still reach the dragon's nest. The swordswoman wondered, where did Loder go? After all, the goblins have been destroyed. One of the surviving knights told the saint that Loder and Ephraia were taken by goblins. The knight explained that these were no ordinary goblins. They are much stronger than they were before. Loder didn't even have time to do anything. The swordswoman said she would destroy all the goblin tribes in the enchanted forest. The girl who lives in this town said for the saint to stay. If the dragons and goblins come back, what will they do? After all, they are civilians. The holy swordswoman thought that this was indeed true. The people of the temple are more important than a few people. Loder could only blame himself for being weak. Even goblins were able to deal with him, let alone dragons. The goblin camp was celebrating the victory. The leader had returned with trophies. The head of Ling Tian brought some people with him. It's pretty good looking. The captives, with their hands bound, were placed on the grass near a large rock. Loder wondered, were these goblins really even able to capture elves? If Freya said their business was bad, they wouldn't last long here. The knight asked if Freya could recover. The woman replied that the poison was too strong, the divine power could not cope. Our hero didn't think the effects of the poison would come so quickly. Freya's recovery skills are too weak. The woman wondered, how did this goblin know her name? What was he even going to do now? Ling Tian took the girl by the leg. The head of the goblins thrust his claws into Freya's leg with force. The woman screamed loudly in pain. Loder screamed too, but there was nothing he could do to change that. Loder began to threaten. He warned that this goblin would be caught and destroyed by the Holy Swordswoman in seconds. Ling Tian said that the Saint Swordswoman would also become his prey. It was just that the time was not yet right. One of his tribe had already covered all traces, so no one would find them. Ling Tian told his assistant to go with the second squad into the forest. We need to destroy as many monsters as possible. The aide said that the leader could rely on him. Ling Tian thought that events were starting to pick up, so they should complete their stages of evolution. Ling Tian stepped on Loder's chest and said that he would ask questions. He better answer or he might lose some part of his body. Ling Tian asked if they were secretly mocking the goblins. Loder didn't know what to do. He certainly didn't want to tell the truth. Ling Tian declared that he was too slow to answer and cut off the knight's right ear. Bleeding and fearing the consequences, Loder said that they are doing everything to protect people. It is their duty to destroy all monsters. Ling Tian remarked that these were only high-minded words. In fact, they only wanted to elevate their status and prestige. After all, it's much easier to finish off a goblin and all the dissenters than to do anything worthwhile. How much blood is on their hands? If Freya was very scared, how could this goblin know everything? Ling Tian coldly said that this was the end of their dialogue. He is different from them because he does everything for the benefit of evil. Therefore, the sneaky monster will teach them a lesson now. Loder shouted for that goblin not to touch Freya. The woman pleaded for Loder to help her and save her. Ling Tian said as he returned Freya's spoken words. The lesson had just started, so she should listen carefully. The head of the goblins took the woman by the neck and told her to let Loder appreciate her. Ling Tian decided to see what the goblins would do to the woman. Loder had to watch this and kept mouthing for the goblins to stop. If Freya was in a semi-conscious state, time passed, one of the goblins walked up to his colleague and said it was time for them to change. It was his turn to stand guard. The other goblin reminded him that the head had said to hang on. No need to destroy her. The goblin said not to worry. She'll live a long time yet. Loder, pinned to the ground by a goblin's foot, told Freya to keep holding on and not to give in to the goblins. The woman replied to the knight that she was fine. The elves, watching Loder and Freya, decided that apparently Ling Tian hated these people. Kasana replied to her mother that those humans were much worse than the elves.
You have recalled that previously Ling Tian had talked about how he was going to take revenge on humanity.
The head of the elves said that this goblin was the most special she had ever seen. The woman thought that this goblin was very strong. Kasana was surprised. Was her mother really conquered by this goblin? The aide reported to the head that the second-generation goblins had returned. A level 33 rabid goblin reported to the head that they had returned to the camp. Ling Tian thought that he was worthy of being a second-generation goblin. Ling Tian asked why they had returned so early. Did you have a good hunt? The mad goblins said they had destroyed all the monsters nearby, so they headed west. But there they met some large goblins who slaughtered the smaller ones. Ling Tian asked what tribe those goblins were from. The mad goblins said that those monsters were from the Bloodtooth tribe. They are quite large. When they were looking for monsters earlier, they found that several tribes had been attacked, leaving traces of blood and teeth. Ling Tian thought that large goblins were interesting. If one could capture their leader and create stronger goblins for the third generation, there would be a much better chance of opposing humans. Loder laughed. He said no matter how powerful the goblins were, they were all just bugs, so we should just wait. Ling Tian said that he had almost forgotten about this knight and added that he was giving it to his subordinates. The knight was frightened. What were they going to do to him? The goblin took Loder by the head and said that humans are beautiful creatures. Their skin is thin and delicate. Loder shouted that goblins were pathetic monsters and humans would surely exterminate them. Several hours passed. The knight, chained by the neck, lay unconscious on the ground. You asked her master. So next time they would attack another tribe of goblins. That goblin tribe was roasting meat on a fire and celebrating their victory. Ling Tian replied that if they did that, they would become stronger. So not only would they attack the other goblins, they would also capture their leader. The protagonist said that he had finally decided on a name. They will be called the Tianmao tribe. The goblins shouted that they now had a new name. the Tian Mao tribe, and that's something to celebrate. You notice that those goblins are bigger and there are more of them. After all, there might be a problem. Lin Tian said that the girl shouldn't worry. He had already thought of everything. Looking at Freya, the leader said he had something for that tribe. Lin Tian stated that he wanted to see the opponent's strength. The magical forest, a forest inhabited by another tribe of goblins. The spot from which our hero observed this tribe was very convenient. Lin Tian wondered, why are these goblins so scared? Is their leader here? It seems that the leader of the Bloody Tooth tribe is an elite. Lin Tian thought that with a total combat effectiveness of 900 units, they would be able to deal with a dozen goblin fighters. However, catching them alive would not be easy. Depending on the size of the goblins, each one has a different resistance to poisons. You have to find good poisons to make it work. The forbidden technique that Freya once used on him is pretty good. It might come in handy. After returning to his camp, the head went to visit Freya. The aide said that everything was as the head had requested. She was almost unconscious. Ling Tian praised the goblin and said it was a good job. The woman was barely alive lying on the grass. She told the goblin to destroy her. That way, at least she could atone for her sins. Ling Tian moistened a towel with warm water and rubbed Freya's back. The woman said she felt warm.
Seeing the head of the goblins in front of her, Freya was frightened and shouted for him to stay away from her.
Ling Tian slapped the woman's face with his hand. She screamed that she was in pain. The protagonist hugged the woman and said her punishment was over. Ling Tian added that he kept his word. All she had to do was prove her loyalty. Freya wondered how she could do that. The head of the goblins said that a woman could choose to believe in the Almighty, or she could become his believer, wander after him, and become his pet. Freya chose the head of the goblins, and he praised her for it. Ling Tian said that he is her sole owner from now on, so he will call her little dog. Freya said that she obeyed her master. Ling Tian took the woman in his arms and carried her to the water spring. The guy freed Freya from her shackles and lowered her into the well. The woman thanked Ling Tian for his kindness. She said she was ready to give everything she had. Ling Tian remarked that it was a big coincidence. He wanted it too. The head of the goblins told the woman that he wanted to see her use the Cage Saint skill. Freya wondered what it was. Ling Tian opened the book of magic from the elves' lair in front of the woman and added that he would show everything now. A cross and a cage of glowing beams appeared in front of the woman. After that, Ling Tian and Freya walked through the goblin settlement. On the right side, there were cages with humans and elves. Loder was in one of the cages. When he saw the woman, he asked if Freya was cured. She must destroy this goblin and then heal him as well. Ling Tian asked in surprise, couldn't Loder see since Freya was now with him? Loder wondered, how could a saint obey a goblin? Ling Tian said for the woman to confirm that it was her wish. Freya stated that she had chosen this path herself. Loder said in despair that very soon the goblin race would disappear from the face of the earth. After all, the raison d'etre of goblins is to be at the mercy of humans. The Church of the Holy Order will destroy them all. Ling Tian didn't think that Freya would turn out to be like this. The head said that Loder should be rewarded for such information, and ordered the goblin not to let the night relax. Our hero told the woman to follow him. It's time to destroy the tribe of the Bloody Tooth. In the Bloodtooth tribe, the old goblin reported to the head that everyone was ready. The head shouted that they should take the elves away from their rivals. The subordinates agreed with this decision. However, one of the goblins told the head that some guy wanted to have a word with him. The head wondered, where could such a low-level goblin come from around here? The head of the Tian Mao tribe came to the negotiations. He said that the head of the Bloodtooth had a close-to-human mindset, so he decided to personally negotiate. The interlocutor asked, is this guy really a mutant? Ling Tian replied that he was just a little smarter than normal goblins. Lin Tian added that he is the head of another tribe and is going to remove the Bloody Tooth chief. Ling Tian told the entire tribe that the rest of the goblins would be allowed to choose. In the first case, they will obey him. In the second case, they will all die immediately. The old goblin told his boss that this goblin is the one who keeps the elves in captivity. Lin Tian told the head of the Bloodtooth that he has good genes, and he suggests that he should join him. The head of the Bloodtooth tribe grabbed our hero's head and said that he didn't think this guy would come to him on his own. After Ling Tian is destroyed, the elves will move to the Bloody Tooth tribe. The goblins screamed for their leader to destroy this guy and tear him to pieces. Ling Tian replied that he thought so. Talking wouldn't lead to anything good. If they don't want to live, then they have nothing to talk about. Ling Tian took out an elven blade and attacked his opponent, striking the huge monster in the arm. The villain, falling to the ground, roared in pain. He said that he was about to destroy this low-level goblin. Ling Tian ordered his assistants to attack the opponents. The old goblin wondered, where did his opponent get such power from? Ling Tian replied that it was all due to progress. Our hero ordered his tribesmen to come out of hiding and defeat the Bloody Tooth tribe. The goblins from the Bloodtooth tribe wondered, did the opponents really have so many goblin warriors? The Tianmao tribe was gaining victory. Our hero thought his plan was perfectly executed. Leaving the battlefield, Ling Tian said, "You can relax now. There was no need to worry about anything." The head of the Bloody Tooth tribe took a swing at our hero and said that even if he died, he would still take his opponent with him. Ling Tian called out to Euphraia, and the woman activated the holy cage. At the same moment, the huge monster was captured by a holy cage with a glowing grid. The monster was terrified. He said it was a terrible technique, and he couldn't stand that light. Ling Tian said that Euphraia had done a good job. She would soon become even stronger and would be rewarded for it. A blush covered the woman's face and she thanked the gentleman. The huge goblin faintly said that Ling Tian was a real demon. Ling Tian grinned and remarked that he would soon become the hero of his species and the head of the Bloody Tooth tribe. Looking at the captive and bleeding monster, Ling Tian thought that it took a lot of effort to subdue it. The head of the goblins, wiping the blood off his blade, said that he was finally done and there were no threats now. Loader, watching the goblin from the cage, wondered how much power he had in him. Who is he anyway? Ling Tian summoned Yue and said that it was time for the goblins to take care of the fertilization. She should take care of everything. The girl replied that she wouldn't let the master down. The protagonist added that if Freya was leaving Yue in her care, the woman needed to be taken care of. Ling Tian walked over to the head of the elves and told Leah to help with the clothes. He needed to meet a friend. Ling Tian added that he had a real friend to meet. From the look on Loader's face, reinforcements should be arriving in Guangming soon. With the current power, you can fight knights, but not the Holy One. It will take time to raise a goblin hero, so you need to find a helper to help restrain the Holy Swordswoman. It's time to meet the dragon. The most convenient way to reach the dragon island was to attract it. Ling Tian prepared a wild ox carcass on the seashore. The boy assumed that the bull's blood would soon attract a dragon here. Indeed, soon the dragon was already approaching the coast, having smelled the blood of its victim. Ling Tian hid himself in the bull's body. The guy thought that against such a scent, the dragon wouldn't be able to resist. The dragon grabbed the bull with its claws and climbed upwards with it. Ling Tian already found himself lifted up. Our hero thought he had succeeded. The dragon flew up to the island and dropped the animal carcass into the cave. The animal fell into the cave to a place where a huge amount of bones had already accumulated. As the protagonist suspected, the dragon did not live alone. Our hero got out of the bull's body. Ling Tian decided that he now needed to find a female dragon. It didn't take long to wait. The dragoness appeared out of nowhere and said that there was a strange thing in this food. It seems to be a goblin who brought his army to Guangming City. Why did the goblin come to this lair? The dragoness wondered, did the head of the goblins really want to be eaten? Ling Tian told the dragon not to eat it, it's unpalatable. He came here to discuss cooperation. The dragon turned into a woman. She said it was a rare gift. Where do you see goblins talking about cooperation? The woman said that this goblin had helped her once, so she was willing to listen to him. If the goblin convinces her, she won't eat him. Ling Tian said that the dragon also wants to take revenge on the Holy Swordswoman, right? Guy offered to join forces. His army would distract the enemy. The dragon woman wondered, how dare low-level monsters talk about resisting a swordswoman? The dragon woman added that this goblin interested her, and she was willing to listen to what exactly he wanted to do. Ling Tian said that it's actually simple. He wants the dragon to send his soldiers to attack Guangming City from time to time. The dragon woman wondered what a bunch of goblins would be able to do against humans. What would Ling Tian do? The dragon woman remarked that it was not worth fighting such a powerful man face to face. Still, goblin weapons won't hurt her soldiers, so there's no danger, and she agrees. Ling Tian offered to make a deal in that case. The woman didn't expect that the goblin could be so clever. The interlocutor said that the more she looked at Ling Tian, the more she liked him. Could it be that he was ready to bestow a reward on her? Ling Tian thought that the female dragon was ready to breed. The dragon woman said that just looking at the goblin wasn't enough for her. Ling Tian replied that in that case, it was time to reward her. Dragon woman wondered what she should choose. In the forest, in the Tianmao goblin tribe, Loader was crucified on a cross. He pondered why the knights had not yet come to his aid. Loader thought if he stays here any longer, He'll definitely break down. He must escape. But how to do that because there are goblins everywhere? Loder saw the dragon approaching the settlement and cried out in fear. The brave knight shouted loudly that a terrible dragon was approaching. He demanded to be released because he did not want to burn alive with the goblins. The goblins looked up and wondered where the dragon had come from. An inquisitive eye noticed that there was someone on the dragon. Who could it be? The dragon landed, Ling Tian descended from its back, and told everyone that he had returned. The goblins were surprised. Had their master conquered the dragon? Ling Tian stroked the dragon's head and said that he could rest here and not rush anywhere. The goblins praised their master in a friendly, unified way. Loder thought, is this really one of the goblins? He really wanted the knights to come and rescue him. The central Guanming Square was crowded as always. The royal knights rode up to the square. They turned to the Lady of the Holy Sword. The swordswoman said there was no time to waste. A rescue plan must be devised as soon as possible. Ling Tian started up the system and familiarized himself with the new tasks. It is necessary to develop the third generation of goblins. In order to deal with the remaining opponents, the hero must send a Freya for training. Protagonist decided to speed up time and transported to the end of the month. Acceleration activation was applied. However, the hero never managed to gain enough experience. Time passed, and the end of the month came. Ling Tian jumped up from his bed. He had experienced a spatial shock. Our hero now understood what it meant to time jump. There were some rather strange sensations. After analyzing the situation, our hero realized that his characteristics had improved, but his overall strength had only slightly increased. Yu appeared on the doorstep and fearfully reported to the head that goblins were not born alive. Ling Tian walked over to the elf woman and saw the horror going on in his unit. What could have happened? The head of the tribe wondered what they could have gotten wrong. Leah answered that she didn't know what exactly had happened, but the third generation was much weaker than the previous ones. The crucified Loder laughed. Do those stupid goblins still want to raise strong descendants? Ling Tian assumed that the knight knew what the problem was. Loder said, the higher the level of goblins, the harder it is to bear their children. Do they really think they can enslave the world if they breed a lot? Ling Tian said that he should thank the knight for these words. However, he broke the news too late. Ling Tian told the assistant with the club that this knight was now his. However, one should not flirt to one's doom. Loder told the goblin that even as a ghost, he would not leave him alone. Ling Tian thought that it was too late to save the dead. They need to think things over carefully. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to resist the enemies. He decided that it was necessary to reinforce the goblins. Ling Tian, as he approached the dragon, was surprised. What was happening to her? Is she really ready to mate? The guy thought that this might be his only chance. The dragon turned into a female, her expression betraying lust. Ling Tian thought that the female was giving the favor herself. The dragon woman, without further ado, threw the goblin to the ground and climbed on top of him. The system congratulated the hero on his new achievement. He had reached elevation. Ling Tian was surprised. Who would have thought that a dragon would turn out to be so insatiable? Was everyone in the dragon clan like this? The guy felt like a real hero. And after all, she could have just given her blood, but she chose a different method. The dragon woman said to the goblin not to leave. It was necessary to continue. Ling Tian, startled, said that he had to finish matters first. The head suggested that the dragon woman give her blood to his subordinates, and then she could return to him. The goblins didn't understand what was happening. Why was this dragon woman running towards them? In the evening, the goblins feasted around the fire. Thanks to the dragon's blood, they had increased their strength. Now everyone was stronger. Ling Tian thought that he didn't expect anything else from the legendary dragon. Not only him, but also the other goblins had become significantly more powerful. Ling Tian decided that the points were still too low. There was a need to prepare. The guy contacted the system. Our hero realized that the tribal leader could not stand idle. A new power must be learned. Ling Tian thought that his points should be enough for some modern and practical equipment, such as a handheld elemental crossbow. It was small in size and suitable for long-range attacks. It could also absorb elements. You can acquire blade resistance. This effect allows you to withstand 3 weapon attacks with your bare hands. With this, you can confront the Holy Swordswoman and save a life. Our hero chose both options. The system reported that the exchange was successfully completed and the skills were in the hero's possession. Ling Tian looked at the crossbow. He didn't know how to use this advanced weapon, but he wanted to find someone to try it out on him. Loder came to our hero's hand. Ling Tian said that this knight was perfect. Hunters appeared in the magical forest. They heard someone asking for help. The girls said that they weren't interested in low-ranked monsters. Why did they come to this forest in the first place? The girl added that if she had known sooner, she would have remained a saint. Her companion said that the mother dragon often disturbs the city, and the saint has no intention of taking care of the goblins, so she leaves this opportunity for them. Besides, it wouldn't take much effort. Knight said that it might be worth thanking Loader, who made such a great opportunity possible. The woman in the hat drew the commander's attention to something moving ahead. A huge bloodthirsty spider with glowing eyes appeared in front of the hunters. It spread its web in all directions. However, in the next moment, that spider was pierced by an arrow. The girl holding the bow in her hands asked in surprise, "Aren't these just third-ranked bugs? What's so scary about them?" The knight, without lowering his sword, said that there was something wrong here. The spider turned into a bloodthirsty monster and attacked the knights. The hunters have determined it's a goblin. Looks like the head of the goblins. Who would have thought their expedition would end so quickly? The girl said it was wonderful. Now all the credit will belong to them alone. The knight told the commander that he had destroyed quite a few goblins along the way. He could rely on him now. After all, he had even destroyed a heroic goblin once. The commander said that in that case, it was time to finish them off. The knight swung his spear and said that he would destroy that goblin in seconds. The knight used the mid-rank warrior skill, Storm Spear, and threw his spear at the monster. The monster did not retreat and intercepted the spear with his hand. The knight wondered, how could this be possible? The knight was startled, cursed, and thrust his sword forward. He didn't think the monster would be strong enough to intercept his spear. The girl activated the protective barrier and said that in any case, their bodies were now protected. Good thing there was only one monster. There shouldn't be any difficulties. Suddenly, a goblin appeared near the girl and pierced her body with his hand. The girl cried out in surprise and pain. The knight said they were trapped. And there's a maniac goblin. We need to defend ourselves and check the area as soon as possible. In addition to the goblin with a dagger, huge goblins with clubs appeared. The huge goblins destroyed the knight and said that all his possessions were now theirs. One of the big men looked at the captive girl and said that she now belonged to him. The colleague said it was all tribal trophies. The head said to bring people to him. It's best not to touch anyone yet. The goblin protested. After all, he was the one who destroyed the majority here. The colleague said they were both strong and suggested a battle. One of the goblins said they were the strongest and the tribe would belong to them. The old goblin noticed that this big guy was very strong. They will walk side by side with him. The thug looked at his reflection in his sword and said he needed to take them back first. The camp welcomed the return of the warriors. They brought their men with them. That's cool. Leah asked the head of the goblins, would he really be able to control them? The thug lifted the captured knight up and said that these were their spoils and he would eat him. Ling Tian, accompanied by the girls, walked over and told the goblin to let him go, adding that he hadn't said everything yet. The thug said, if the head wants to say something, he has to give up a wench in exchange. Yi and Leah were scared. Ling Tian calmed them down and told them to stand still. Lin Tian asked, does that thug even know what he's saying? After all, he's talking to the chief right now. His opponent says that the rabid goblin is much stronger than him and offers to test it. Lingden now realized who their backbone was. The chieftain said he was giving him a chance. He must destroy the goblin standing next to him. Then he will spare him. The bully laughed and said he couldn't do that. In fact, he was about to become the new chief. The big man destroyed the four-armed goblin and threw it at the chief's feet. The mad goblin stated that he has realized many things since his return. He differs from the others in his loyalty to the chieftain, but believes in his absolute power. The thug told our hero that he had previously defeated the former chief, but now he wants to try it too. Ling Tian saw the strength of this rabid goblin and understood the reason for his bravery. However, our hero asked if his opponent was confident that he could stand up to him. All the goblins created a circle and prepared to watch the upcoming confrontation. Many warriors wanted the mad goblin to destroy this guy and take away his women. Ling Tian said, from the looks of it, many goblins want to follow his opponent. However, one must prove his strength and power. The protagonist ignited his hand and said that goblin heroes who want to continue following him must immediately stand beside him. Otherwise, they would all come to an end. The captured knight was surprised. Would the leader sacrifice the goblins? Who would have thought that the leader would be such an unremarkable guy? The knight decided that luck was now on his side. As soon as the goblins start fighting, he will immediately run away. They have a very big difference in strength, so it's useless to act otherwise. The knight decided that when the old head died, he would try to escape. Ling Tian looked around at the dispersed goblins and said that he seemed to be more popular. There were only a few goblins willing to follow the rabid goblin. The opponent put his sword forward and said that he is different from them. He chooses infinite power. The confrontation began, and the bulky man attacked our hero, but Lin Tian managed to bounce aside. The knight was frightened. When did this guy manage to become so strong? Actually, they are both very agile. Attacking the opponent with a flaming sword, our hero said that the thug had good abilities. Ling Tian directed a stream of fire at the opponent and told the bully to taste it. Mad Goblin thought he didn't have time to notice that weapon, it was too fast. The big guy realized that he couldn't dodge and would have to repel this blow. Ling Tian thought that the big guy was able to break through his fireball. He was terribly strong. The Mad Goblin approached to a dangerous distance and, swinging his sword, prepared to deliver a staggering blow to his opponent. Those watching saw a huge explosion and a bright flash at the epicenter of the battle. Everyone present, holding their breath, watched the events unfold. When the smoke cleared, the bulky man was surprised. How could his opponent block his powerful blade? Ling Tian said, the rabid goblin was unlucky with his opponent. He held his opponent's blade with one hand and took aim with his crossbow with the other hand. The protagonist applied Blade Fighter. This means that he could repel the attack of an opponent who uses a blade. Gromila fell to his knees and said he conceded defeat. Ling Tian didn't think that his opponent would turn out to be so spineless. The goblins, who supported their rabid counterpart, asked the chief not to destroy them. They do not want to die and will not do so again. Ling Tian called these goblins brats. Crawling on their knees, they continued to beg for mercy. The saintess walked over to the frantic goblin and told him to get up. Lin Tian said if the thug continued to follow him, he would stay alive. Ling Tian looked at the traitors and said that he couldn't let these guys go. They must serve him forever. The goblins replied that they obeyed the head and thanked him. The mad goblins said they would always follow their leader and asked these guys to provide him. The goblins were frightened and begged not to be mistreated, for they had already repented and were on the path of correction. Ling Tian told his subordinates to absorb these unruly ones, and after that, they would become stronger. The captured knight asked, "What does Mr. Loader have to say about this? It's not just a goblin, it's a real monster that should be avoided by an entire empire." Lin Tian walks up to Loader and apologizes for not putting on a whole show. He knows that the knight is looking forward to someone coming to save him. The goblin leader added, "Is the knight's hope for this ghostly dream too high?" Loader, gritting his teeth, said that he would definitely wait for the swordswoman. All the goblins here would die someday, and once again called the goblin a pathetic brat. The captured knight told the goblin leader not to be too proud. Once the holy swordswoman dealt with the dragon, she would immediately come here with an entire army. Ling Tian asked the knight, "He doesn't think that the dragon will go to attack Guangming City alone, right?" In any case, he was glad to hear the knight's musings. Now he was fully at ease with the dragon. The knight said he now understood why the goblins had lured so many soldiers here from the city. They wanted to take the piss. However, soldiers can be destroyed, not played with. After all, the goblin has already learned the necessary information. It's time to finish. Knight said if it was possible, he would like to die with Loader. Ling Tian said that he would fulfill this request. The holy swordswoman got out of bed. Why was it so noisy? Had the dragon broken through? Or had the team returned? The knight burst into the woman's chambers. She ordered him to report immediately. The saint reported that the Knights of the Silver Blade had been destroyed. Only one had returned. The swordswoman became angry. How could this have happened? The holy swordswoman put on her armor and approached the wounded man. The nurse said that the wounds were very severe and healing was not working. The woman inquired as to the cause of such wounds and what happened to the others. The wounded knight, without removing his armor, said that they ran into a goblin hero and then rushed off. Someone in the audience showed compassion and said they should have been more careful. It must have been hard on them. The nurse told the knight to hold on and not give up. The saint was indignant. Are those goblins at it again? The formidable knight was indignant. What kind of goblin heroes are these? It's just another brat. The holy swordswoman said that the dragons are attacking more frequently, and the goblins could take advantage of that to strike suddenly. She can't stand alone. The woman said that it was necessary to send a few people as support. They should protect Guanming. She will personally take care of the goblins and the dragon mother. The huge knight recalled that the past team had been sent to fight goblins. The woman asked, "Do you really think they are still alive?" A stranger entered the room and told the holy swordswoman that there was no need to send anyone anywhere. The mysterious stranger said that the soldiers were too arrogant. No wonder their regiment ended up defeated. The stranger was Kasimov, the leader of the Knights of Doom. Kasimov asked that the rescue of the people be entrusted to him. He will honorably fulfill this duty. The holy swordswoman asked, "Does Kasimov really think he can do it alone?" The leader of the Knights of Doom said that he had once fought alone against 4 Titan warriors at once and was still alive. Even those goblins are no match for him now. Kasimov removed the bandage from his face and showed his disfigured, burned face so that no one would have any doubts about his determination. Ling Tian thought he needed some good news and told the system to activate the information panel. The system reported that following the Saint Swordswoman's instructions, Kasimov had attacked the tribe late at night alone. In the end, although the hero fixed Kasimov, the tribe suffered serious damage. Ling Tian thought, wasn't it too naive to come alone? However, Kasimov would be able to do some serious damage. Our hero decided to take the initiative and personally get rid of Kasimov. There was no need to run away from this guy. The system said that in that case, there could be a duel with Kasimov until victory. Lin Tian thought that this opponent could be very strong. It was necessary to prepare before the battle. Loder hung on the cross and glowed with joy. Kasimov is on his way. Soon the goblins will be finished. Loder added that Kasimov had fought the Titans, and even against them, he was able to stand up to them. Ling Tian was surprised. Does this knight really believe in Kasimov? However, who are the Titans? A Titan is a powerful warrior bred by the enemy side with Titan genes, capable of destroying rank 5 monsters. Loder continued to exult. All goblins will soon be finished. The goblin leader asked, "Does Kasimov really have any techniques?" Loder said, "The goblin leader could start begging for mercy." Ling Tian decided that caution was necessary. We should send someone to scout around. Kasimov traveled through the woods to his destination point on his warhorse. The lone warrior was surprised by the fact that he didn't encounter any monsters in the forest, only the remains of the previous squad. The brave warrior thought he could smell the sweet odor of blood. It stirred him. The warrior wondered if his current opponents would be able to keep him happy. Kasimov heard crying and pleas for help. Where was that voice coming from? The warrior galloped in the direction from which the crying came. He saw a woman sitting near a tree. She continued to sob intensely. Kasimov was surprised when he recognized who was in front of him. But how had she gotten here? Is Freya really alive? The girl turned around and looked at the brave warrior with hope in her eyes. Freya reached forward and told Kasimov to be sure to help her. The brave warrior asked what had happened to Loder. Is he alive too? Freya cried again and said she had escaped from the goblin tribe and Loder was dead. Kasimov asked that the woman specify which goblin tribe she was able to escape from. Freya pointed her finger in the direction and said that this tribe was over there. It's not very far from here, but those goblins are very creepy. Freya told Kasimov to escort her to safety, but the brave warrior rode away. He told the woman to go ahead, then she would not make a mistake, and he was left with unfinished business. Kasimov was a desperate knight. He was always lonely and ruthless. The brave warrior thought, if Loder was finished, then no one could stop him now. If he arrived first, the goblin tribe would not be able to stand against him. A trap was set along his route, the horse's foot hit the rope, and the horse stumbled. Under the action of inertial forces, the horse fell, and Kasimov, falling off the horse, flew forward. The brave warrior looked up and saw Freya approaching him. How could she come here so quickly? He had already ridden away from her. The woman raised the cross upward and activated a blast of divine light. Kasimov found himself in a stream of light rays. Kasimov wondered what Freya was getting up to. The woman replied that the owner had ordered it destroyed. Freya activated a divine light attack. An even more powerful beam of light struck the lone warrior. A dark mist appeared in front of the woman. The opponent activated soul absorption. Kasimov appeared out of the mist and grabbed the woman by the hair. How dare Freya attack him? The lone warrior said that the woman herself started it first. Does she think he only likes destroying monsters? He likes women too. Kasimov heard someone tell him that this was a great chance for him. Had he really decided to go up against them alone? Our hero appeared nearby, holding Kasimov's blade in his hand. He said that the lone warrior had good skills and had a great weapon. Ling Tian thought if Kasimov used his attacks, his tribe would be in trouble. Kasimov was angry, How dare this low-ranking goblin take his blade? The lone warrior wondered if this was the goblin that had made the girl attack him. Lin Tian said that Freya made a good pet. The goblin leader said that this man disappointed him. It was thought that Kasimov should be stronger. The lone warrior wondered, how did his opponent have information about his characteristics? However, it was a familiar thing for him to deal with goblins like this one. The man said he'd tear those goblins apart with his bare hands. There's a place in hell waiting for them. Our hero was not alone, and huge goblin warriors appeared near him. Ling Tian said that they would still see who would be the first one to go to hell. The goblins were joined by a dragon, which began spewing flames. At the Tianmao tribe camp, a sentinel reported that the leader was returning. The leader, Lin Tian, is returning from hunting. Ling Tian threw the burnt body in front of Loder and asked who it was. Was this really the almighty god of doom that Loder was talking about? Loder laughed. Is there really a new doom? Why is the Holy Swordswoman trying to protect these townspeople by sending warriors one by one to certain doom? This is a very bad strategy. Ling Tian thought that it was time to focus on cultivating rare goblin species. The corpse meat was very useful, so it would come in handy for development. The chief told his warriors that they would eat first and the leftovers would go to the others. The goblin warriors thanked the leader and approached the body. To turn a simple goblin into a rare species, you need certain genes and talent. Our hero decided to choose fierce goblins that have the most potential. Ling Tian thought that this type of goblin was very hypocritical and twisted. But this is just the right kind of thing. As for the Holy Swordswoman, Ling Tian had already verified the information. She only had 3 knights that had already fallen into his hands. As soon as news of Kasimov's death reaches the townspeople, the Holy Swordswoman's authority will be undermined. She will definitely do something to improve her reputation. It was time to use the system to know the future. Ling Tian activated the system. For information, the protagonist said that the Holy Swordsman was very greedy. It looks like the victory will be his. Ling Tian told the goblins that he was announcing a general gathering. Tomorrow he would take them on one grand endeavor. The goblin leader said it was time for annihilation. The Holy Swordswoman asked the aide where he had found these remains. The knight replied that they were outside the city. The huge knight wondered how these goblins were able to destroy Kasimov. They brought back the body too. The Holy Swordswoman thought that the goblin and dragon attacking at the same time wasn't just a coincidence. Perhaps the 2 races were in cahoots, determined to lock them in the city so the humans could do nothing more. We can't do nothing more. The Holy Swordswoman ordered the knights to immediately head forward and seek support. The knight, accompanied by his aides, set out to find support. The associate said that if they traveled to Wanda on horseback, the journey would take at least 4 days. What would they do if the city was already destroyed by the time they returned? The warrior said he had very fast legs and would help. The knight, on the other hand, can go back and guard the city. The woman in the hat said that this warrior doesn't understand anything, for this is the strategy of the saint. If they run into goblins while traveling, at least there's a chance someone will come back and report everything. The problem is that right now the knights can't handle the goblins and the dragon. The saint is confused and doesn't know what to do, so it is unlikely that anyone will agree to help them. The knight remarked, that's why the saint has devised this strategy. She wants to protect at least them. They definitely need to find reinforcements. The travelers approached the gorge and saw the ruined suspension bridge in front of them. What should they do now? The woman in the hat said it was a trap. They need to change direction immediately. The knight said that an ambush might be waiting for them on the other road. What will they do then? Even though the bridge is broken, this is their safest route. The knight ordered the trees to be cut down. A new bridge must be built before dark. Dusk came and the bridge was repaired. The knight said they were running out of time and needed to hurry. The woman in the hat said that for some reason it suddenly went dark quickly. What happened? The travelers raised their heads and saw a huge dragon hovering above them, obscuring the sun. The dragon wasn't alone. There was someone standing on its back. Could it be the goblin? The knight realized what was going on. It turned out that the goblin was at one with the dragon. Ling Tian laughed. It turned out that this team turned out to be jacks of all trades. Instead of making a detour, they decided to build a new bridge. Were they afraid that he was building a new ambush? The knight made the right conclusion. It turns out that this goblin broke the bridge on purpose. He promised to destroy the goblin. Ling Tian gave a command, and the dragon released a jet of fire directly towards the new bridge. The riders sped up to avoid falling into the abyss. The bridge behind them was already on fire. The woman in the hat said that their bridge had been burned and there was no way out. What should they do now? The bridge had burned through the middle and was in disrepair again. Down in the ravine, the fire was blazing. The knight said he wanted to torture this goblin completely. Ling Tian, approaching the knights on the dragon, said that the opponent wouldn't succeed. Their goblins and mother dragons wouldn't be so easy to defeat. Just then, the goblins appeared and approached the big knight. The warrior said they were surrounded by goblins and someone else on a dragon was approaching them. The woman in the hat said that if that dragon man jumped to the ground, they would definitely be finished. The knight said that they must endure. If they made it through now, Guangming City would once again be prosperous. The knight said for Bat to tell the others the news. They would try to delay the goblins. The warrior replied that he understood. Bat rushed to the attack and said he was about to destroy all the goblins. He had to break through the cordon. Bat approached the goblins, swinging his weapon. The goblins dodged this warrior's attack. Bat didn't attack the goblins. It was an imitation. He ran past and shouted that when the Holy Swordswoman came, then all the goblins would definitely be finished. Bat tried to make his way into the city. The woman in the hat told the knight that something was wrong here. These goblins were strange. It turns out that the goblins deliberately allowed Bat to break through and escape. Ling Tian stood on the dragon that was hovering above the fighting men. The head of the goblins said that this was part of their plans. The chief added that they needed to get the saint out of town anyway. Ling Tian asked, "What does the knight think will happen once the saint leaves the city? Don't they realize that in that case the city will come to an end?" The knight shouted that it was necessary to seize the rider. The city must not be harmed. It and the saint must be protected. Against the knight came a rabid goblin, a monster of enormous size. The knight thought that his strength was much less than his opponent. What to do? The knight saw that the goblin had Kasimov's blade in his hands. How did he get it? Lin Tian warned his team that time was running out. It was time to call it a day. The dragon dipped lower and the goblin leader jumped to the ground. He said that it was necessary to dispose of the knights before the saint arrived. Our hero and his team stood in front of a knight who was lying on the ground. Ling Tian activated the wind suppression mode. The knight thought that he couldn't do this anymore. The mad goblin hit the knight on the head with an axe, but his helmet held up. The goblin told the boss that this knight had a very strong head. Ling Tian told the mad goblin to step aside and leave them alone for a while. Ling Tian told the goblin who was massacring the hat-wearing woman that they should leave before the saint came. The Holy Swordswoman, along with the knights, stood on the edge of the cliff and surveyed the area from above. The woman decided that they were unfortunately too late. When Saint, Beth, and the knights arrived at the battle site, there were only bones left from the knight and his companion. Beth tearfully said that he would definitely avenge his fellow knight. The Holy Swordswoman said there are only corpses left here. The woman concluded that the goblins and the dragon had teamed up and were working together. Bat said he saw a goblin riding a dragon. He thinks it was their leader. It was this goblin who ordered the dragon to destroy the bridge. The bodies of the crew must have been burned as well. The saint must deal with her enemies. The swordswoman thought that the dragon flames had covered a small area. The main skin from the humans had been eaten by goblins. Isn't that a lot of trouble? The saint realized what her mistake had been. She said it was a distraction. They urgently need to go back. The enemies are attacking Guangming now. The woman's hunch was confirmed when the swordswoman and her knights returned to the city. Everything there had been destroyed. The swordswoman couldn't believe it. She kept repeating, "It's not true." Some goblins had tricked her. The boy told the swordswoman to get out of here. She only pretends to protect the city every day. She's the reason the goblins came here. She's bad and she's a liar. Who asked her to come? She couldn't even protect them. So what kind of saint is she? The town doesn't need a protector like that. The dragon mother said that Ling Tian was good. He had done his job. Not even a direct confrontation. The humans were taken by surprise. It's not easy for mankind now. Dragon said that it was good that she had met Ling Tian once. The head of the Tian Mao tribe and his warriors returned to the camp. He asked the guards if anything strange had happened. The guard on duty replied that the attack on the city had gone smoothly, and there was even a catch. There were women in the cage. The goblin said they had spared them to play with later. The goblin added that they gave Kelia a wagon load of gold and drove her out of town. Ling Tian told the assistant that it was a good job. Today was the day he would be able to absorb the power of monsters too. The protagonist thought that Kelia was the only one who believed in him to the last. As a reward, he sent her out of this hell. Ling Tian decided that the Saint Swordswoman was having a hard time right now. Ling Tian told the resting dragon woman that the plan had succeeded and thanked her for her help. The dragon woman said that the saint was out of power. Ling Tian asked to keep sending dragons to the city to put more pressure on the saint. The dragon woman asked what she would get in return. Dragons fly there every day, which makes them very tired. Ling Tian replied that he would think about how he could settle the account. The dragon woman said she'd like to get her hands on this goblin as a reward. How does he feel about that? Ling Tian asked, is this really such a joke? The dragon said that he just had to fill her belly, then she would be. However, if the goblin refused in that case, she would definitely get angry. Ling Tian wondered, what is the dragon talking about? How could a weak goblin be worthy of her majesty? Dragon said the goblin is not weak. She sees in him the potential of a lord. The woman added that dragons have always worshipped the strong. That's why she wants to be around the strong and reproduce powerful offspring. Lin Tian said that in such a case it was better to respect rather than obey. The dragons on opposite sides of the cave watched this process. The system reported that a new achievement was unlocked. Our hero was satisfied. He got a lot of additional characteristics. Lin Tian said, let the mother of dragons sleep. He doesn't want to wake her up. After a while, our hero was again on top of a flying dragon. The mother of dragons is a very powerful being. He would be in trouble if she wanted him to stay with her. The dragon woman thought that this goblin was exactly as she had imagined him to be. Perhaps one day goblins would enter a whole new stage. Kasana asked in surprise, did Ling Tian really want them to leave? The goblin leader said that given their addition, he was letting the elves leave. The lad thought, elves are more useful than humans. Instead of suppressing them, it's better to take the risk and let them follow him willingly. Leah told her daughter if she wanted to, she could leave. Leah turned to the goblin. After so much time spent together, she had made sure that he was no ordinary goblin. That was why she wished to follow him. Lin Tian said, this woman is smart. If she stays, they won't attack other elves anymore. The leader of the goblins thought that she wanted him to become a protector for the elves, so she decided to stay by his side. Kasana wondered how her mom could stay here. Some of the elves said they'd stay here too. Kasana, you've already made that choice. Ling Tian stated, this is excellent. If this is their choice from now on, they are not prisoners but as loyal subordinates. He will make sure that they are safe. Ling Tian thought to himself, the Holy Swordswoman has fallen. There would be no invasions now, so one could develop in peace. He decided to invest in building an even larger army of heroes. Gramila told his boss that these people were too small for him. Leah said she could help with artificial breeding. The aide walked over to Ling Tian and said that one of the goblins had been found dead. Ling Tian asked how this happened. The goblin replied that he didn't understand himself. Literally everything was fine just a moment ago, and then he went crazy and died. However, in the next moment, everyone noticed that this goblin had come to life, but was completely different. It was a level 50 mutated goblin, a mad warrior who had suddenly transformed. Ling Tian thought if it wasn't for the mother of dragons, perhaps he wouldn't have gotten such characteristics. The goblin was jubilant. Not only was he not dead, but he had also become stronger. Ling Tian said that his wisdom and strength had increased, so he could focus on raising the next generation. 3 months had passed. In Guanming City at the inn, the knights were discussing how the saint was doing. How does she not go crazy? Funny how the goblins could even deal with their best warriors. Everyone saw a warrior enter the inn. It was Diamond, the commander of the Daredevil Squad, His Royal Highness Sitel. After a 3-month period of stable breeding, the hero had obtained a total of 150 hero goblins in 3 generations. At this time, the royal family has allocated a reward of 300 gold coins. She gathers a group of daredevils to go to Guanming City and then exterminate the goblin tribe. This time the hero will have to fight diamond and epic opponents. Preparations must be made. A diamond rank traveler is considered a mentor to the others. A holder of epic rank generally surpasses the power of the Holy Swordswoman. Ling Tian pondered over what he should do, how to deal with them this time. Leah said she had something to report to her master. The women said that the new generation of goblins has grown up, but there are not many resources left in the forest. Not enough for everyone. There is an iron ore base nearby. Some goblins were short of weapons and equipment this week, so their training is delayed. Ling Tian thought that resources were scarce here, and the situation in the city was heating up. Looks like it's time to move. The new house should be well protected. Ling Tian announced that the tribe was moving immediately. Yik wondered, were they really moving? Leah replied that she was obeying. Ling Tian brought his tribe to a cave located in the mountains by the lake. The interior is just right. There's no better lair. The leader told the warrior goblins and earth goblins to take a few men to clear the gravel and fortify the cave. The children must grow up safe. The goblins set about the task, and the work boiled over. Ling Tian told his subjects that from this day forward, this place would be their new home. They must obey him in everything, or they would die. Ling Tian thought that he had relocated his tribe. Now it was time to check out Guangming City as well. If the system was right about the travelers, he would have to see for himself before he could make any further plans. The bartender inquired, didn't His Royal Highness Sitel only destroy high-level monsters? So why would he want to go after goblins now? Sithel replied that he wanted to save Loder's useless brother and deal with the goblins himself. Someone in the tavern laughed and said it was just Sitel wanting a reward, that's all. The old man who entered the tavern added that they give 1,000 gold pieces for goblins. So he also wanted to participate. Those present were surprised. Has the wizard Gru also arrived? This is the head of the diamond-level Brave Regiment of Grey Hats. Seidel noticed that the old man couldn't keep his mouth shut. The man already at the bar said it was very funny. The Holy Swordswoman couldn't handle it, so you decided to try it yourself? Don't forget that this time the cold-blooded Lucilina is also involved. Those present were surprised. When did he come? They say he'll do anything for money. He doesn't care who he destroys. Sithel wondered if the Wandering Brave had come here because of the goblins too. He said that he didn't care much about goblins. He had come here to get rid of the dragon. The man added that if he could slay the dragon, he would become an epic traveler. The interlocutor said that he would like to remind us not to underestimate goblins. Although they are inferior creatures, their evolutionary abilities are remarkable, especially their tendency to mutate. The wizard Gru agreed, for he had lived for 100 years and had seen more goblins than the women here. This inferior race has always been a great danger to all ethnic peoples. They have not been exterminated for several thousand years. The old man added that goblins were a real scourge to humans. However, if it weren't for the money, he wouldn't have come here. Sithel thought it was true. Many of his companions had fallen because of the goblins, so one had to be very careful. Seidel put a bottle of alcohol on the table and said that he and the old man would definitely cope with the goblins. And even after the victory, he was ready to give all the rewards to the wizard Gru. The old man laughed. If that was His Highness's wish, he would not refuse. He thought that if they got into danger, he wouldn't even have to exert himself. Studying the map, Sitel said he thought it was best to lead a team of men directly into the forest. There they could solve everything with violence. However, there are too many unexplored things along the way. You need to walk that area first and then make a concrete plan. Wizard Gru said that the young man was too cautious, in which case he could compose everything himself. Siddle saw the knight and thought that this guy was that crazy guy. Old man Gru said the goblin slayer's here too. Maybe we should talk to him. Seidel apologized to the knight. He was unaware of his status. The knight stated that he didn't want people to know about his status. Why was he stopped? Seidel thought that this knight was very strange. Even his voice was fake. The old man laughed. What a stranger His Highness is. This is a man who has never been seriously injured while fighting goblins. It is said that he single-handedly destroyed over 1,000 goblins. Sithel asked, why didn't the knight join them and attack together? The knight said he didn't need it and asked for the road to be cleared. The wizard Gru stated that this knight was being very brazen. Then he shouldn't beg for mercy when the goblins capture him. The old man added, no matter how strong he was, you can't talk to people like that. Our hero watched these mercenaries from the top of the mountain while in the city. Ling Tian used the piercing vision option. The goblin destroyer was a level 65. It is a person who hides his identity. Lin Tian asked the system if there were any solutions. The system replied that there was no answer yet. Our hero was interested in the knights who appeared near the city wall. Who could they be? Seidel is a rider with the ability to restrain. Gru is a professional grand mage, has a wide range of skills and a combined power that is harder to handle. The protagonist thought that despite their diamond rank, there shouldn't be any problems. Special attention must be paid to the knight, the destroyer of goblins. A former settlement of the Tianmao tribe, the mercenaries arrived in the area and began to collect evidence. The wizard Gru said it was very strange. They should have discovered such a large settlement a long time ago. There were many traces of battles left earlier along the way, and that was enough to prove that the tribe was nearby. Seidel knelt down and told old man Gru to look over here. The old man looked at the evidence and said it was the hair of an elf, unless he was mistaken. Sethel wondered, had the elves really helped the goblins escape? How could that be possible? The old man said they had searched the forest, The goblins had nowhere to hide. Most likely it was the elves who helped the goblins to hide. The wizard Gru let a butterfly out of his jar and let it smell his hair. He said that this butterfly loved the smell of elves. The wizard added that perhaps with the butterfly's help, they could find the goblins. The mercenaries followed the butterfly. It seemed to be heading in that direction. Had they really crossed the river? Sithel suggested to the old man, "Maybe we should wait for the goblin destroyer to do everything." Gru replied that there was no need for that. The wizard offered his companion a sideways glance. A goblin warrior was crossing the clearing not far away. The mercenaries crossing the river decided to pursue this goblin. Our hero from the top of the cliff, watching the mercenaries with the dragon, said they had taken the bait. Ling Tian and the dragon saw a knight, a goblin annihilator, approach the shore of the island. Ling Tian thought that he would like to deal with this opponent first, but he didn't know when he would think of coming. The knight began to take off his helmet. The knight took off his armor, and Ling Tian was finally surprised. There was a young girl standing on the shore of the lake below. The head of the goblins thought, "Is the goblin annihilator really a girl?" However, she doesn't look like a member of the human race, and her strength stands out as well. Who even bathes in a situation like this? Our hero felt as if the girl was doing it on purpose, trying to seduce him. Had she really discovered them? Ling Tian jumped on the dragon and headed away. The guy decided to be careful with this girl while he dealt with the others.
The girl decided that this was a very wise move on her part. After all, she was beckoning to her.
The mercenaries saw a goblin lying on the ground. They decided to be cautious, for they might be surrounded. Suddenly, arrows flew at the mercenaries from all sides. The worst suspicions were justified. The wizard Gru took out his fireball and decided to activate his defenses as quickly as possible. First of all, the old man decided to counterattack the arrows flying towards them and directed the stream of fire in the appropriate direction. Seidel said that the old man's attack even almost hurt him. "This wizard is really strong," Gru said with confidence that this is not the end. Turning around, the mercenaries saw that they were being attacked by a huge goblin. The wizard Gru shouted that it was a goblin hero, he must be attacked. The old man's assistant opened the appropriate book and said that he would fulfill everything now. Gru performed the fireball technique again, and the rabid goblin was forced to stop. The old man laughed. The rabid goblin, shaking himself off, rose from his knees. The mercenaries wondered if the monster was still alive. Seitel noticed goblins coming at them from all sides and shouted that they were surrounded. "Those monsters are everywhere." The wizard Gru was surprised. Where did these goblins get their equipment? There was no way such a thing could happen. The old man added that he relied on Seitel. Gru applied the life source and began restoring strength to himself and his co-workers. After that, the medium-rank magic, Ice Shards, was applied. Goblins that were attacked by Ice Shards received critical damage. Next, a mid-rank magic was applied, Sandvice. After that, the mid-level magic used was Punishing Rain. The goblins continued to suffer losses. On top of the mountain, like a great general, stood our hero. He told the huge goblin to help his fellow goblins. The modified goblin monster jumped down from the mountain and rushed to attack the mercenaries. The wizard Gru didn't expect to see such a monster and ran aside in fear. Seidel said, "There is no need to be afraid, we need to hold on." Huge goblin monsters entered the battle and began to crowd the mercenaries. Sethel called on the priesthood for help. He said he needed maximum strength, he had to root out evil souls. The highest ranked magic, Sacred Light, was applied. Ling Tian, like everything in the forest, was engulfed in the flames of Sacred Light. Seidel said for all the mercenaries to move in close and create a circular defense, he's about to summon a blizzard. Seidel said that they must fulfill their goals of destroying all the goblins. Ling Tian, watching these actions, thought that the diamond-ranked travelers were more intelligent than he had previously thought. If they came to the other goblin tribes, those tribes would not be able to withstand. Ling Tian regretted that these mercenaries had come to him specifically. Goblin warriors led by a modified goblin approached the mercenaries. The girl on the lakeside said that goblins are beautiful and strong. On the battlefield, the goblins had captured the mercenaries. The battle was almost over. Sithel was on his knees, leaning on his sword. He had wounds that bled. The wizard Gru, lying on the ground, reached forward and told Sithel to help him. Sithel jumped to his feet and rushed running into the forest. He shouted that these goblins were real demons. The goblin monster grabbed the old man's leg and began pulling him toward him. Gru struggled, clutching at the ground with his fingers. Sithel screamed in fear and approached the forest. Sharp arrows were falling all around him. Who knew they'd be shooting elven arrows as well? At night, a goblin destroyer appeared in front of Sithel. His Majesty asked for help. The goblins were approaching, and swinging their swords and axes, were about to attack Cetel. However, the knight entered the battle and destroyed all the goblins. The rescued Cetel rejoiced and thanked the knight. He would be sure to repay the favor as soon as the opportunity presented itself. The goblin destroyer said that if Cetel wanted to retaliate, he should stay as far away from him as possible. Cetel told the knight not to leave. This is no ordinary goblin tribe. Their lord is here somewhere. The knight said it suits him, the more the better. The goblins stood around the destroyed mercenaries. A crazed goblin lay nearby. Ling Tian, watching from his seat, thought, "What's going on there?" The goblin destroyer saw the goblin monster in front of him and asked, "Is he really their leader?" The knight added, "Looking at the expression on that monster's face, you wouldn't be able to tell that right away." The goblins shouted that it was necessary to destroy this knight and rushed to attack him. The knight drew his heroic sword and set about destroying his opponents. The warm time of day came. The battle continued. Ling Tian thought, what kind of skills does she have? Isn't her rank rated as A? Could it be that she also possesses magic? The modified goblin monster shifted into a ferocious state. After that monster rushed to attack, the knight said, "It's a raging calf." The knight stepped aside and swung his sword at the monster. After attacking this monster, the knight noticed that his body was bogged down in some sort of viscous liquid. Ling Tian thought, is it really worth retreating? But I'm sorry to just leave her behind. Her skills aren't bad. She'll be perfect for further breeding. In a direct confrontation, they obviously can't stand up to it. We need to work to exhaustion. Flying over the battlefield on the dragon, Ling Tian ordered everyone to retreat and form a circle. Only attack from afar. The knight, trying to clean himself from the slurry, was surprised. Does a goblin really control a dragon? The knight realized that he couldn't play here. Getting down on one knee, the knight leaned on his sword. He needed a break. Our hero thought, how long until this knight is completely exhausted? The knight took off his helmet and all the goblins saw that a pretty girl had appeared in front of them. The goblins, licking themselves, had forgotten that they needed to fight. The girl thrust her hand into the chest of Gru, the wizard lying on the ground, and pulled out his heart. Licking herself, she said she adored human hearts. Ling Tian thought this was bad and shouted in fear for his warriors to keep a close eye on her. The girl jumped to her feet and grabbed her sword, decisively destroying all the goblins in the vicinity. The goblin monster foully cursed and grabbed his dagger and rushed to attack this girl. However, the goblin destroyer used an energy attack and attacked the monster from a distance. The goblin's chest exploded and it fell to the ground. Ling Tian thought with consternation, who on earth is she? Even against the goblin-devouring force, she can stand up to it. In the current situation, we need to think about how to reduce the number of casualties. Ling Tian, flying on a dragon over Yifreya, said for the woman to follow him. The others should hide immediately. The dragon slayer told Ling Tian to stop. She hadn't seen such a smart goblin in a long time. If the leader will allow a closer look, I will keep his subordinates alive. Ling Tian asked in surprise, does she really think I would fall for something like that? The girl was surprised. Don't you believe me? She began to take off her armor. With her upper body almost bare, she asked, maybe that's better, and he'll believe it. The head of the goblins wondered, did she really take off her weapons and armor? What kind of games are these? Ling Tian landed the dragon nearby and decided to descend to the ground. Our hero got off the dragon and said that in that case, he was ready to talk to the girl. The girl knight said that this goblin exceeded her expectations. Ling Tian reminded his interlocutor that she had promised to let his subordinates live. She told the guy not to worry, she keeps her promises. At that, she ran a fine needle along his tongue. The girl said that the goblin should satisfy her and stuck the needle into her opponent. The girl added that she loves hunting and destroying powerful goblins. Although he looks like a low-level goblin, he has the wisdom of a lord. Our hero knelt down under the influence of the needle and began to lose his strength. The girl moved closer to her interlocutor and said that it made her very excited. Ling Tian asked out of his last strength, did you really trick me? The young man was upset. What carelessness! How could he have fallen for her tricks? Ling Tian looked at his subordinates. What are you doing? The girl said that all the goblins were under her control and would not look at them. Indeed, everyone turned away and stood with their backs to their leader. The goblin destroyer hugged the protagonist and promised he would not be destroyed. The girl said she wanted to enjoy it and had to look at it. The wily rival plopped our hero on his back and, climbing on top of him, said she wanted to see what kind of creature he would become. After these words, the kiss happened. It was a consensual kiss. From the bushes, Sitel watched the scene. The guy couldn't believe it. Is the goblin slayer really a girl? So she's with a goblin too. Turning around, Sitel saw an enraged goblin approaching him. After what happened, the goblins dragged the defeated opponents over and said that they now had plenty of food. Ling Tian told the girl that this was the goblin's lair and she would act at her own risk if she followed them. The girl reminded him that everything would depend on his strength. Ling Tian asked who she was and what kind of power she had. How could she control his subordinates without taking control of him? The girl said that if she told, he had to promise to let her look at himself again. Ling Tian replied that it all depended on what she said. The girl claimed to be a descendant of a goblin king. Our hero was surprised and asked why it looked exactly like a human in that case. The interviewee replied that her mother is a human being. As it happens, she was raised by goblins who abused her mother. Needless to say, the more evolved goblins are, the harder it is for them to procreate. But she was lucky and she survived. The girl stated that it happened about 10 years ago. With a knife in her hand, she began to destroy the goblins. After drinking all their blood dry, she immediately gained the power of a goblin lord and subjugated them. She destroyed all the goblins in the dungeon. Ling Tian asked, the reason why she could control the goblins was because of the strength of the royal bloodline? The girl said she added her blood to the weapon. As soon as she touches a goblin with her blade, it dies immediately. If the other person can't resist, then she will take control of him as well. The girl added that she is a goblin destroyer and can't stand them, and destroying them is her fun. Ling Tian thought now it was clear why her identity hadn't been recognized by anyone earlier. She was born to become a slayer and contain the goblins. If she became his enemy, it wouldn't be good for him. Ling Tian said that they looked alike and invited her to join him. The girl replied that she thought it was as if the goblin was afraid of her. She had planned to take control of him, but apparently it wouldn't be useful. The girl added that the situation in the city was difficult right now, and it was better to return for a diversion. Lin Tian said that she would continue to pretend to be good. The girl said that the goblin belonged to her now, and she was protecting her things. Looking into the system, our hero thought that this girl gave him quite a few points. She was worthy of being a descendant of the king. Seidel told his brother Loder that he looked like a dog. His family's reputation would fall below the plinth. No wonder Saint didn't go to rescue him. Loder offered his interlocutor a glance at the pot of boiling water. He is preparing it for Sitel. Sithel looked at the fire and told the goblin to leave it alone. Seidel told the goblin not to destroy him. After all, he was from a noble family. Loder told the goblin he wanted to meet the leader. Ling Tian was surprised. This guy had been silent for so long, and now he decided to talk? Loder said if the head of the goblins would free Sitel, he would honor any request he made. Seidel apologized to his older brother and said he didn't mean to offend him. Ling Tian grinned. Does this prisoner still want to set conditions? Loder said that if they cut off his leg and let him go, he would bring the news that Loder was alive, and the family would definitely send more people to rescue him. Then Ling Tian would be able to absorb even more people. Loder said that they must die, he would destroy them all. Ling Tian replied that it looked like Loder had already made up his mind and agreed to the proposal. Loder grabbed his head and repeated that everyone needed to be destroyed. Leah told the Lord that their location would be revealed if they let Seidel go. Lin Tian said so that the elf girl wouldn't worry. Or don't you believe in me? In the tavern, the knights shouted that it was over. They were finished. The bartender calmly asked, "What's over?" The knight said he saw Sithel. He was legless and had barely made it to the city. Those present in the tavern were startled. How is this possible? Did Sitel and the others fail? One visitor wondered, did both teams die? And only one person survived? A knight, a goblin destroyer, came into the tavern and said that everything was right. Everyone was dead, only Sithel had survived. The frightened knight approached the goblin destroyer and asked, "Weren't you also in that battle?" The stranger approached the knight and asked, "What happened to those goblins?" The goblin destroyer said that there were over 100 of them. However, he had destroyed them all. The attendees calmed down, for the goblin destroyer was not to be expected to do anything else. The bartender said that tonight this knight could drink whatever he wanted on the house. They don't call him the goblin destroyer for nothing. However, bats suddenly burst into the bar, and there were a lot of them. Everyone present was frightened. What was it? The knights wondered, are they really mercenaries? They have a very unusual way of appearing. One of the bats asked Mr. Goblin Destroyer, "If he says there are several hundred goblins, does that mean he found their lair? But goblins are good at hiding, aren't they?" The knight said he didn't find the lair, just finished off the ones he met. The bat said not to worry. The task of finding the lair can be left to them. She hopes to cooperate. The knight replied that he didn't like to act at night, and he wasn't used to cooperating with others. He stood up and headed for the exit. Bat said she was sorry. Looks like we'll have to keep the reward. Bats circled at the edge of the forest. The aide said to the commander, "It doesn't look like there are any troops around." The commander replied, "The smell of blood breaks off here. They're definitely inside." The goblin guard was surprised to see so many bats. The colleague said that there was nothing surprising about it, and it was time for them to act. The bats looked at the sleeping goblins. Are there really so many of them, and only one mutant? Maybe they've made a mistake. It's only a medium-sized clan after all. Bats said, "There are a lot of big goblins here. It's just like the goblin destroyer said. They can get drunk on blood now while the goblins are sleeping." The bats decided to attack the goblins and suck them dry of blood. However, one of the bats failed to attack the goblins in time and was struck by fire. The vampire was surprised. How can there be a holy nun in a goblin lair? A woman with a glowing cross came out of hiding. The exit of the cave was engulfed in flames. The goblins jumped to their feet and grabbed the burning torches. The bats didn't understand how they were going to get out of here. What to do now? The goblin leader said, "Vampires dare to come here and drink our blood? Are bats so brave nowadays?" The bat began to turn into a human. Female vampires appeared in front of our hero. They said, "If we are discovered, it is necessary to finish off our opponents." After studying the characteristics of these vampires, our hero thought, "This is incredible. Why do they have such high characteristics? It's a good thing I got the information about the mercenaries beforehand and prepared myself." Lin Tian said, "I will watch with interest to see which one of them will burn in the flames first." Ling Tian lined up with his warriors, and the goblins began to glow under the illumination of the Holy Maiden. Under the influence of the bright holy light, the vampires began to squint and cried out in fear. How can goblins, inferior demons, use holy skills? Ling Tian said that fighting would not lead to anything good and suggested negotiation. The goblin leader said, "These vampires must have come here for the reward as well. I just don't understand why vampires who live off blood need money." The female vampire replied, "The Holy Church and the Holy Swordswoman are not stupid. If we hadn't signed an agreement banning the drinking of human blood, who would have gone to make money to buy blood?" Ling Tian thought, "If I can get these vampires on my side, I might even be able to improve the abilities of the goblin race."